Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Breakthroughs with Bre. On this podcast, we are having breakthroughs about our personal and spiritual development journeys, all in pursuit of living our most authentic, free, and joyous lives. My name is Bre. I'm an Akashic Records channeler, energy healer, astrologer, and personal and spiritual development coach. Today's breakthroughs will be about human design, how we can use this really cool system to better understand ourselves, to better navigate our lives. It's a human design 101. So if you're curious about it, I'm so excited to have you here. Remember, in the show description, there will be timestamps so you can click around to whatever suits you. And let's get started. So on this week's episode, we have the honor of having Jamie Clark, which is Sunflower Vigilante on Instagram, which is the most fun handle, who uses human design to help people reframe their experiences, step into their voice, and get over their own bullshit, which I like. I stand this. I love it. So welcome, Jamie. I'm so excited to have you here on this episode.
Thank you so much, Bre. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I got connected with Jamie through like a human design giveaway, Erin Claren Jones. I've talked about her before. I really recommend following her if you're interested in human design. She has a lot of really cool content. It was a reading through her. Me and my friend Maddie got with Jamie. So we did a whole, like, it was my first ever human design reading. It was fabulous. It was incredible. It was magical. It was wonderful. And I reached out to Jamie after that and said, "Hey, I just loved the way that you talked about human design. I think this would really resonate with, the people that listen. I know a lot of people are so curious about it. There's like this like thirst for more about human design. So I'm very grateful that you said yes to coming on and just talking with us more about it."
Oh, I'm so glad, Bre. Totally. And I have to say that your reading with Maddie was so special to me in that community. It can be really nerve-wracking to get in front of a huge group of people and be like, here's my chart. What do you see? And just the fact that you two were willing to do that and share so vulnerably about your experience and really go quite deep in front of a group of people was really incredible. So I'm so grateful that you won that giveaway.
Everything in its own divine timing and purpose, I suppose. Okay, so I would love for everybody to get a chance to like get to know you a little bit. You have my questions that I ask my co-host, Sun, Moon, and Rising, obviously human design, which we're going to talk more about, and all of the things. So tell us a little bit about you through the form of those fun questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a Virgo sun, Gemini rising, and then my moon is in Leo.
Ooh, well,
And
two fellow Virgo suns here, so we love it.
amazing, get in
Amazing.
order.
Yes.
And then from a human design perspective, I'm a 6/2 emotional manifestor. And so what that means is I'm really here to make an impact, to initiate people into their gifts, and really take a bird's eye perspective of things, as well as feeling into all of my emotions and feeling into what feels good for me in my life. Um,
Love it.
yeah.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah, I don't know my aura color, but if I can, to me, it feels very yellow right now. That's what's
Mhm.
coming up. And I would love to have that reading one day and just everybody else sees, but yellow's coming up for me.
I could totally see that. A lot of the Virgo, Gemini, like the order and the process and whatever, like that tends to be a very yellow thing from what I've learned. She has a lot of resources about learning about the aura colors, and like so you can figure out which one might be yours, and like even just the archetypes of that go in there. So that would
Beautiful.
make a ton of sense. Yeah.
Well, I love that. And then I grew up loving Harry Potter. I know that there's so much controversy with that particular author, but if we're looking at just the books and just the movies, which I fell in love with growing up, I, for the longest time, said that I was a Gryffindor because I loved the truth and all these things. But if I'm really honest with myself, I'm definitely a Ravenclaw. I love to read. I took this backpacking trip to Ireland years ago, and I brought a backpacking trip. So I had a backpack on my back, and I brought 7 books with me.
If there was ever a showing moment, a telling moment, it was that.
Yeah. So it's that I like
Oh
that.
my gosh, I love it. Well, so I kind of was all over the place, even myself thinking about what house I would have been in.
Yeah.
I was very studious in school just because there was a lot of pressure to achieve and get good grades. So like you figure out what you got to figure out, you know? And I'm also very inquisitive. I ask a lot of questions. Like I want to know why, and then why behind that, and why behind that, you know? So that part of me always felt like I could have been a Ravenclaw, but I'm a Hufflepuff, 100% through and through, proud Hufflepuff. But I like really question if I was like maybe like a wing Ravenclaw or something, like a secondary
Yeah.
Ravenclaw. I like considered that for a while, honestly. So I vibe with the Ravenclaw all day long.
I love that. And I can see that in you, especially as a manifesting generator, which we'll get into in this episode. You love questions. You love to be inquisitive. If you see something that really lights you up, it makes so much sense that you want to talk about it and really get into the nitty gritty and the juicy details. So I love that.
100%. And I just have to say, for anybody listening who identifies with that, I wonder if you'll identify with this too. Something that I've learned as being a person who asks questions is that our society doesn't really like question askers. um, what I've found in like a lot of really random places is that people internalize questions as like the person who's asking the question, like challenging it or like not being okay with it, or like we've used questions as like a passive aggressive way to disagree with things or something. So when I come from the place of genuinely asking questions because I want to understand it, because I'm with you, I want to be deeper, I want to be in more alignment with it. Like when I'm leaning in via questions, I feel people lean back and get turned off just by the sake of me asking questions and then start to project all this stuff onto me. And I'm like, wait a minute. I was asking questions because I care, because I'm like actually trying here, but somehow this has been misconstrued as like I was like against it or opposing it or something, you know? So I just, if anybody else are the question askers out there, I just want you to know you're not alone. It's not a bad thing to ask questions at all. And frankly, there's a lot of people that just they get triggered themselves. They themselves feel like the question means more than simply an invitation to know more. So I don't know why I felt like saying that, but I did.
Love
So
that.
clarity for you
Yeah.
all.
It's coming through, and it's all about intent, and then also how it's perceived. Someone, if you notice you're asking somebody a lot of questions, really sharing from your heart and saying, I love this topic, I'm so excited to hear more about you, I'd love to learn more, and leading with that heart space can be so useful for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for telling about us all those things about you. I'd love for us to continue this momentum and to hear a little bit more about your story. Um, what brought you into connecting with human design. I feel like there's also probably an element of your story that influences how you use human design or like your perspective on human design. So I'm going to open up the floor to you to tell us whatever it is that you want to about all of that.
So if you rewind the tape to 5-7 years ago, I was an improv teacher. And if you knew me in middle school or elementary school, you would have said, absolutely not. That is not who you are. You are so shy. I moved through the world being absolutely terrified that people were looking at me and perceiving me, and anything that came out of my mouth, that they were judging me for it. And so that's not a good way to live at all.
It's tough. That's a tough way
Right?
to move through the world.
That's a
That's
hard
difficult.
way. It's
Yeah.
hard. And that's not
Yeah.
fun at all. And so I moved from the East Coast out to the West Coast with a company. I was building out a sales floor, and I was really into Amy Poehler and Tina Fey at the time. I loved Parks and Rec. I loved 30 Rock. I loved The Office. I was so into that comedy scene. And as someone that was very shy, like never dreamed of doing anything like that, but really resonated with the message that they were sharing with people. And so I was online one night, and I found this improv class, and immediately my body tightened up and was like, oh, there's no way I can, like, not a chance. I'm not getting on stage and talking and not knowing what I'm going to say in front of people. Are you kidding? There's not a chance. And then, of course, naturally found out that Amy Poehler and Tina Fey and all these women that I really looked up to were improvisers. They do improv comedy. And so I said, okay, ended up signing up for a class. ended up definitely had a beer in front of, like, before every single class. Did not, yeah, it was so scary, but something stuck in it. And so I kept taking classes. I went to Chicago to learn. I went to San Francisco to learn. I started performing every night at this little theater that I built with my friends. You know, it went from doing improv in this little basement theater class to building out a whole improv theater in the community that I was in. And so incredible. It was this amazing experience. And I still had that stage fright and being afraid to speak in front of people and tell my truth. But it was like, it was easier to do that because every night I got to express more and more of myself. So for me, improv, I was like, okay, this is the direction that I'm going. This is what I want to do. I started I took a year off from working and started traveling in a camper van, working with retreats and all these things. And what I ended up finding through human design was that I was already living my design based off of the experiences that I had. Right. So it's not like you get to human design and you're like, oh my gosh, this is all new material. I didn't know about this at all. This is not what I thought of myself. You really read your human design and hear about it and say, oh, this is me. This feels like me. This is the person that I've always wanted to be and have just maybe been afraid to do it.
So it feels like it helped you like validate and deepen into your own experience that you were already happening with the world.
Yes. Yeah. And it also gave me such permission to step into things even further that I was afraid of. Human design is such a beautiful tool that shows you, okay, this is what you could be, this is who you are, and this is, you know, really the gifts and the things that you're here to share with the world. But because of societal conditioning and circumstances in your life that may have shown up that have diminished that light or diminished that power, you maybe have found yourself off track.
I love that. Well, I just have to say, I'm getting the feeling that we're in a flow and we should go straight into the main topic today to talk about human design. So I think we should do that.
Yeah, beautiful.
All right, so let's dig into it, everyone. Human design. If you've literally never heard of it before, I'll just say from like a very beginner's perspective, it's kind of like a personal development, like self-awareness, self-assessment. It like fits in that category. You use your time of birth to generate the human design chart. And then the chart gives you a bunch of information, and I'll let Jamie speak to more of that kind of stuff. But like that is like the very basics of it. So it's like akin to, you know, an astrology chart or like a Myers-Briggs or like, you know, it's like it's in this world. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Jamie. I'd love for you to start by telling us just like, you know, for us beginners, like what is human design? Like what is a human design chart for us?
Yeah. You explained it really well. So, human design is really an experimental system. So, right. So if you're in the personal development world, you're probably very familiar with astrology or Myers-Briggs or strength finders, where you take a self-assessment and you take a report and you fill out all these questions about yourself, and then it spits something out, similar to Enneagram too. Human design does all of those things without any of the filling out the information. What happens as people is sometimes when we fill out those charts, we fill it out based off of who we think we want to be or who we think we should be versus what we actually are. So human design is this experimental system that shares about you and who you can be in the world, and it encourages you to go out and experiment with it. So the founder himself, Ra, said, don't believe a word that I say, go experiment with it. And what I love about that is it's so actionable. So if I read something in my human design chart that is like, oh, I love this, I want to go experiment with this, this is great, and I go out and I experiment with it, incredible. If I read something and I say, oh, this hurts me, this hurts, and I go out and I experiment with it, and it doesn't work, that's equally amazing, right? It doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. It's more about giving yourself the language and the tools to move in the world in a different way and gather data about yourself.
And really, I think what's beautiful about what you just said is that we should be applying that to any source of information we get externally anyway. Like this concept of discernment of I know what resonates for me, even if I don't know all the answers in the world and like I'm still open to learning and I'm always going to grow and develop. Like I know what resonates and what doesn't. And like I can hear something and I can say, what can that offer me? Like it can that like help me build something into my life I want? Can that help me test something I'm not sure about? Like, and like that's really like with anything, but I like that human design is designed to be able to offer that for us in a way that it feels like gives us a more self-aware and therefore self-empowered way of moving
Yeah.
through the world.
Absolutely. And it's really giving yourself permission to come back to your own authority. I love that use of the word discernment because it's really easy to get caught in the weeds or caught in the noise of the personal development space of do this, don't do that. Duh, 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 duh. And then you think, oh, I must do that because I'm seeing somebody else that's really successful and they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not necessarily true. Human design really taps you back into your own inner authority and how you were meant to move through the world and really step into your gifts in a way that feels really good on your nervous system, not on the person that you're looking at on social media that has 100,000 followers and this big coaching business. It really taps you back into your own inner authority.
I love that. And I feel like that's also to give you credit, a reflection of how you interact with it too. Like I think that there are I mean, all of us have probably got caught in some moment of time where somebody tells us you are this because of this personal development category that you fit in. And like we kind of like sit back and question ourselves, like, are we really that? But I feel like when you feel curious about a topic, first of all, that's a signal there's probably something there. And two, when you allow yourself to go towards people that you resonate with and that do direct the power back into you, it just opens up this whole other opportunity where you're not sitting there letting or wanting somebody to tell you about you because nobody can tell you stuff about you. Only you can tell yourself things about you, but they can offer things that you can like put into your mix, and that you can see how that is. And especially when they frame it up that way, I just feel like it like energetically opens up a space for a lot of really cool things to happen. So I'm glad that there are people out there like you that practice with those tools in that way, because I just feel like that's so important.
Oh, beautiful. Totally. And it's that reflection. You really have to go back and go to people that you resonate with and
Mhm.
that feel, okay, this person gets me, this person sees me. And also that they're not afraid to tell you the bullshit parts too. That's
Mhm.
a big part of human design. I was so confronted by my chart when I first saw it. It was, I learned a lot of things about me that I was not ready to face and did not want to hear. And I did not like the way that it was framed to me. And so for me, I also want to say that sometimes that is an important piece too, of
Mhm.
really looking at your own bullshit, looking at the things in life that aren't going well so you can move through them.
Yeah. You got to be honest with yourself about what's not working if you want something to change. If you want to feel different, if you want to be different, like it definitely requires that process. Okay, I feel like this is a great time um for you to maybe talk about like the basic elements of a chart. I don't feel like we need to get like super in detailed, not that you would have anyway, but since we're not looking at a chart or whatever, but like what are some of like the main like elements of it if somebody who's looking at it for the first time. And maybe after you explain that, maybe you could recommend some of the like first places that somebody could start
Mhm.
when they're looking at their chart for the first time and starting to dive into its wisdom for us.
Awesome. Beautiful. And so with Erin, have you seen Erin's new thing on her website where it gives you like
The blueprint.
you enter in the information and it gives you a paragraph summary of everything? Have you seen that?
I don't think I have.
Oh, it's cool. Okay, I'm gonna lead with that and then go
Okay.
into the different like elements.
Absolutely. And just so everybody knows, I'll link what she's talking about too. So you can in the show description, you can like click and go straight to what she's talking about too and like get your own version of this. So yes, tell us all about it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's incredible. So I studied human design under Erin Claire Jones. I'm in her advanced reader sessions. We're learning all of these really powerful tools about how to take human design and move in the world with it. But if you go to her website, and you enter in your birth information. If you do this on any other human design website, you get a chart and it looks so confusing. It's like there's all these words and you're like, what is a 4-6? Or
And
what's,
numbers and like
yeah,
shapes and
what's a
yeah.
sonic authority? What's a manifestor? Reflect? I don't get it. So the first, and that's not useful, right? It's just not. So the very first place that I would recommend is going to Erin's website, humandesignblueprint.com, and entering in your birth information. And what she's done is she's given a paragraph of information based on your design chart. So it may tell you how you move in the world, what you're really meant to do, how you may interact with other people. And then if that resonates, you can start going deeper into the chart. So what I would say for anybody that's brand new to human design, what we're going to talk about today, if you look up a chart, you're not going to get it. I didn't understand it either. Nobody does.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more so about, okay, let's start to break down the individual pieces and see how this impacts my individual experience.
I love that. Yeah, I'll have to go look that up. Maybe while like you're explaining this, I'll be pulling this up and give like an example of what that sounds like for people. So in terms of like what like after you read the summary, if you're like super curious, like what would be the next pieces that you would
Yes.
recommend people to look at?
Totally. So say you look at this paragraph and this happens all the time and you realize, oh my gosh, this is me. The first place that I would recommend starting is your energy type and how you move best in the world. So there's 5 different energy types in human design, and everybody has a different strategy. Strategy in human design is really how you're meant to move in the world and feel into your best decisions, things that are going to work really well for you. So we've all had the experience of like having this amazing idea in our head and we're going to build this business or I'm going to go after this thing, and then you do it and it bombs and it does not go well. And you're left like feeling very defeated and unhappy, and it just doesn't feel like flow. Strategy in human design is really the way to step into more flow in your life, in your experience. So there's 5 different energy types in human design, and we'll go through each one very briefly and what their strategy is. And again, this is an experimental system. So really the impact that you may notice in human design is when you go out and you experiment with it and you try it and you see how it goes. So we'll start with generators. So actually, let's start with manifesting generators. We'll start with manifesting generators because that's what you are. So manifesting generators, your strategy is to respond and often inform. So if you are, the example that I just used, you're like, I have this great idea and I'm going to go out and I'm going to do it. We just think about Nike, just saying like, just do it. Like, let's get there. And then you do it and then it doesn't work. With manifesting generators and with generators, your strategy is to respond to the world that's around you. So if you're walking down the street and you see something that lights you up or gets you excited about something, pay attention to your internal gut experience of, like I like that. I want to move towards that. Or this, I don't want to do that. I do not want to move towards this thing. And start to follow that as you're moving through the world. And I imagine that you, Bre, as a manifesting generator, have you experienced any of that, or have you started to play with it?
Yeah. What's funny is with the aura colors, this feels very similar to a purple aura color in that there's like a lot of, it's kind of like changeable, and there's like this constant like evolution and kind of following the creative impulse of it. But like hearing it in terms of human design, honestly, it's helped me like trust myself even more, that like when I feel like a yes for something, green light. When I feel like red light, like just giving myself more permission to do that has definitely been something that's already helped me in this short time that I've learned more about that.
Awesome. I love that so much. And I hear that so often from both generators and manifesting generators, that when they start to listen to that guttural response that they have, like, yes, I want to move forward towards this, or no, they start to see more flow. And with these two energy types and strategies, you get to, you all are very powerful. So you get shit done. If you know that you like something and you want to do it, you will get it done. And you have this beautiful, like, battery like energy where you have all of this information and things that you want to do. What's challenging about manifesting generators and generators is that because you're so good at getting things done, people ask you to do a lot of shit.
Or
Right?
maybe you pick up a thing of like putting expectations on yourself to do a lot of shit, like maybe it's
It,
something like that too. Who knows?
I, no, definitely not speaking from personal experience, are you?
No, not at all. It's not me.
No.
It's definitely me.
Yeah. But that's the thing, is like, okay, so when you're deconditioning and really exploring your human design chart, starting to notice where you have said yes to something that didn't actually light you up. And the invitation for manifesting generators and generators is to slow down and say no. Say no. Say no to the things that aren't lighting you up, because that's going to open up so much more space for the things that you actually want to be doing with your time.
I love that.
Yeah. Cool.
Tell us about the other energy types too, because I'm curious about them.
Yes, absolutely. Of course you are. I love it. You're meant to be.
I want to
So,
know.
yeah. So I'll share about projectors next. So projectors are the guides of the situation. They're the people that really have the bird's eye perspective and can look down at the whole situation and see everything from A to Z and know where everything fits. They have this ability to see people very, very deeply, and pull things out of you. It's interesting because projectors sometimes have this energy or this pressure of, I have to get everything done because I'm watching everybody else in the world do everything and now I need to do it too. But ultimately, projectors are really meant to pull back and only give energy and guidance to people that are ready to hear it.
Is this the one with the invitation? Is that the projector thing? Yes, I heard Erin talk
Yeah.
about this. She said, I've learned that like waiting for the invitation just means that I'm waiting for people to show me that they're ready to receive what I want to give. Like the invitation is the signal that they want, like they actually themselves are desiring like what I have to offer, and therefore it signals that it is safe and that it's aligned for me to give it.
Yes, exactly. And there are a lot of projectors out there when they first learn about their design that hear waiting for the invitation and they're like, that's bullshit. I'm not going to wait for it. Like I'm not an invitation. What do you mean? Like, this is 2023. We're not doing that anymore. And I get that, right? I wouldn't like that either if somebody told me that. But the difference is really what you're talking about, is it's waiting for and sharing your energy and sharing your gifts with people that actually want to hear you. So if you think about, if you're a projector and you're listening to this and next time you're at a party and say you have this like insane guidance for somebody and you know exactly what they want to do and you tell them and they don't receive it, they're like, whatever, I don't want to listen to that. You may notice some feelings of bitterness come up because you have the right answer. You want to share this thing with this human and help them. But if they're not ready for it, it's not going to land. And then you both walk away from the interaction feeling awful.
Yeah.
And so with projectors, it's really going to spaces where you feel very recognized and acknowledged for the gifts that you have and what you're willing to share.
I feel like for what I feel as you're talking about projectors is that skill of discernment is especially important, but more about like where is giving you the signals that they're ready to receive. Like for a manifesting generator or generator, it's discernment of, do I like this? Am I excited by this? But for projectors, the discernment is, am I honestly getting the signals and like whatever invitation means to me, right? That like this place will value what I bring forward. And am I enough in my own power to not leak away my energy and my gifts to places that are not ready to value it?
Exactly. It's giving yourself that self-recognition first.
Mm,
I'm a powerful being. I have this guidance to share, but it's not meant for everybody.
mhm,
And really checking in with the receiving person and walking away from exchanges feeling really valued and recognized.
mm. That's beautiful. Okay, what's the next energy type for us? I love this.
Yeah, good. So we'll talk about reflectors next. So reflectors are the unicorn, the very rare type in the human design space. And sometimes people hear unicorn and they think like, but what I mean by that is they're just very rare. It's only 1% of the population.
Wow.
So reflectors are really, really lovely people to have in your space to like feel out how things are going. So reflectors have this beautiful sampling energy where they can walk into a space or walk into a party and immediately realize like, yes, this is going really well, or oh, this is not good at all. They, from a human design perspective, if you look at a reflector's chart where you're seeing all of these little shapes that are colored in and open, a reflector is completely white on their chart. There's no definition on their chart. And so they, if you're deep into human design, that's a good place to start. Is you're moving through the world and you're like sampling different people's gifts, and you're really able to reflect the person in front of you where they're at emotionally, health wise, physically, and see them very deeply.
Mm, how interesting. Tell me more about like how, like what strategies really help them
Okay.
move through the world.
Yeah, so this one's really fascinating. They are very correlated to the moon.
Mm,
So, what can be helpful for a projector when they are moving through the world is giving themselves lots of time to make their decision. So, if you're out in the world and you're like, someone asks you a question and you don't have an immediate response, and it's a big decision, right? Like moving across the country or buying a car, or starting a family, or whatever it is, giving yourself a lot of time and space to check in on that.
mm,
The strategy of the reflector is moving through the world and sampling different people's energy and really feeling into like, does this feel really, really good for me?
mm. You want to know what's crazy is speaking of the aura colors, and for anybody who maybe is listening to this podcast episode for the first time, Mystic Michaela on Instagram. She has a podcast, everything, aura reader. She's fabulous about being connected with your most authentic self. It's so rad. One of the really unique aura colors is turquoise. And you were
Oh,
describing like the almost verbatim, like how she talks about turquoise. It's one of the empath colors, but it's like a different flavor where they are like reflecting energy back to people, whereas the other empaths absorb it like a sponge and like feel and understand the energy through absorption.
that's
Turquoises like
interesting.
become it and reflect it back and sometimes don't even realize that they have now like now the version of them right now is actually the person they're with and not even them because they're so deeply reflecting it back to the other person, and they have to be really careful about who they put themselves around because they can physically pick up like symptoms from people. Like if somebody around them has a bad need, they spend a lot of time, all of a sudden they have a bad need because they're like actually like mirroring on like a
Yes.
deep level the energy. And so they have to have a lot of time and space to themselves and say, wait, is this the reflected energy I absorbed off of somebody else, or is this me and what I want and what I feel? Because even how you're describing the strategy for them is kind of like take some space, like really ground back into the center of yourself, and your discernment is like, is this me or is this somebody else's vibes that kind of felt like it could fit in me, you know?
Fascinating. That's so cool. And it's so important to do that as a reflector because you sometimes these beings can take on the fears and anxieties of other people. And the
Mhm.
reality is that we all do that to an extent,
Yeah.
right? That especially in human design, when you're looking at the different shapes, each one represents a different area of life. And
Mhm.
so you may find that you pick up on other people's fears or other people's emotions or other people's ideas. But specifically for reflectors, rather, they it's a gift and also something to look out for. They can beautifully reflect people and be the empath, like you're saying, with these turquoise aura individuals.
Mhm.
And if they're in a place that feels really unhealthy and everybody around them is unhealthy, they're going to amplify that just as much.
Mm. Wow, that is so cool. Knowing that they're like super unique now, I'm gonna be like looking out for like if I know any reflectors and be like, oh, cool, like you're a special snowflake in like a really good
Yeah,
way.
totally. Totally.
Okay, so I think that leaves, I know we talked a little bit about generators, but there's also manifestors too, right?
Yeah, so the last energy type is manifestors, which is my energy type. So manifestors are really meant to have a huge impact on people that are, and sometimes they see things much earlier than other people do. You know, the strategy of a manifestor is to inform and initiate, to really share what it is you're working on with other people, with the collective, so they can get on board.
Mm.
I'll use a personal example here. When I was improv, right? I was taking an improv class and I was so nervous. Ugh. So I started talking about improv a lot, and I started to share what improv can do for people. And that's really how we started building that community. I was, working with a ton of beautiful, amazing improv performers, but it was this like hidden gem that no one was talking about. And at the time, people, my friends and my community were like, "You're crazy." Like, I'm not going to get on a stage. Are you joking? Absolutely not. But I kept persisting in this. And then over time, over the years, in my corporate community, I started giving improv workshops and using improv in sly ways because I can see how much it helps people.
Mhm.
And so as a manifester, if you're listening to this and you're a manifester, if you have this like creative urge that's coming up through you that sounds absolutely crazy and you've never seen it before in the world, those are the urges to go after and to really pour your energy into, because you're like moving the collective forward and things like that.
Mm. Yeah, and it's just funny, like these things make me think of other like archetypes and
Yeah,
things. Like in
totally.
astrology, the Aries archetype is the trailblazer. Like it does take somebody who has a vision for something that's different than the vision of the collective, that's different than the status quo, and sort of having the bravery, honestly, and like the grit to like go first, and to share the thing that people don't get yet,
Yeah.
to like to show the example of what that could look like. So people who resonate with that, AKA we're always meant to come along on that path with you, can find it, but like it does often take that leader. It takes it takes the trailblazer, and it feels like the manifestors kind of embody a lot of that energy from what you're describing.
Absolutely. It's the trailblazer. It's and allowing and bringing other people along with you.
Mm.
If you think about the strategy of the generator and the manifesting generator to respond, where manifestors give people something to respond to. Oh, I like this. I want to move forward towards this. This sounds weird and I've never done it before and it's really scary.
Mhm.
But I want to move toward it.
Mm.
And the last thing with manifestors too is sometimes people don't like us.
You
It's
don't say.
yeah, it's a little weird, right? Like for me, that was such a big thing where people really tend to enjoy my energy and gravitate towards me, or they're like, who the hell is this lady that is doing improv and like messing up? Like I want nothing to do with her.
Well, it would make sense to me that people
Yeah.
who go places that have not been ventured would trigger people,
Yeah.
because that's really what it is. You just trigger people and they're like, oh, nope, I'm not for that. I'm not ready for that. That's not like, I'm not open to that vibe yet, you
Yeah.
know? So that would make sense to me, but that's also difficult. Like that's a very difficult human experience. Just like a human experience growth level is to find a way to feel at peace with people not liking you, or like some people not accepting you, I say in quotations, and like what that, and like coming to peace with what that does and really does not mean about you as an individual, and like how to allow that. Like, how can you allow and
Yeah.
surrender to when some people walk the other way?
Yep,
you know?
absolutely. And it's such a universal human experience of coming to terms with that. My personal experience, and that was tough. I wanted people to like me. I would get really upset when people didn't, and I thought that that meant that there was something wrong with me,
Mm,
rather than, and it's not that something's wrong with the other person. That's not it either. It's we just aren't aligning in certain ways, and we may bump up against each other.
mhm,
But ultimately, those experiences are the ones where you realize, oh, I get to, even if this person doesn't agree with what I'm saying or I'm not their vibe, I still get to hold that in me and
mhm.
speak into that. And this is bullshit. If so, like if you keep quieting yourself and pretending that the thing that you want to say doesn't exist, then you're just in your own bullshit. And so there's so much to work through there.
Wow, I love that. It's kind of like the gauntlet for the manifestors.
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone too. It's like
Yeah.
manifestors go first, but ultimately everybody experiences that in their life of like, okay, I'm at this job that I hate and I'm not speaking up and I'm not shifting anything and I'm not changing anything. Like, where did I learn that work was supposed to be boring?
That it was supposed to be hard, that you were supposed to kill yourself for it, that you
Yeah.
have to be in servitude, all of the things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all of there's so much in the human design space that really gives you the conversation starter that opens the door to move through things that you don't actually want to be doing.
Yeah. So before we move on from the energy types, something that I'm curious about is that obviously there's themes shared between the generator, the manifesting generator, and the manifesting, like the manifestor energy types. If you could explain, like what is the distinction between those three? Like how did those kind of have, like how are they unique from each other?
Mhm.
I can see more clearly maybe between like the manifestor and the generator how those are different, but like then the from the three specifically from each other.
Yeah, totally. So, um, with the most similar manifesting generators and generators are quite similar to each other. Then we'll talk about some slight differences, and then the manifestor is quite different than those two types.
Okay.
So with the generator energy, the generator is really the thing to do is to say yes to the things that you like.
Mm,
Say yes to things that come into your world that you want to do, even if logically it doesn't make sense to do them.
mm,
Check in with your body and check in with yourself.
mm.
um, with generators specifically, there the I feel so deeply for generators because I see so many of them get caught in careers that they don't like,
Mm.
but they're doing them because they're like slightly good at them, or they're
Good
whatever,
enough.
totally
At him.
right,
Yeah.
totally good enough, but it's not like truly lighting them up. And so with generators, the thing is to slow down enough so you can start saying yes to the things that you don't want to do, or
Mm,
start saying no to the things that you don't want to do.
mm.
Hmm.
That makes sense.
With manifesting generators, they have the same strategy in the world. You're still waiting to respond. The key with manifesting generators, and something that I see a lot, is you all have so many different interests and ideas, and you move really, really fast. It's such a gift. And sometimes what you notice is you're like, I'm here, I've gotten to the finish line, I figured this out, I've got it. Where is everybody else? Like, where are you? Like, what, how are you not moving so fast? And so the key is to embrace that and not beat yourself up for having a ton of different hobbies and like dropping them one day. So yeah, so like a lot of it, like I tell this story in readings with manifesting generators where like you're the person that picks up like crocheting one week, and then bicycling the next week, and then skiing, and you might have a whole storage unit full of exercise equipment that you don't use anymore because you thought you had this great hobby. And the thing is, it's not bad and it's not wrong. It's just a way that your energy is. If you resonate with this, trust that even if you did a task or did a hobby for 2 weeks and then dropped it and never picked it up again, you got what you needed from those 2 weeks.
Mm. So that like extremely multi like passionate and like quick to move through things and like change. Like that's the part that's a little bit more unique about the manifesting generator versus the generator.
Yes. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And it's, again, it's not to say that a generator can't have multiple hobbies, because you totally can. I'm neither of those types, and I have a ton of different things, but it's really about the energy. It's like the challenge for manifesting generators is to stop beating themselves up over that particular thing and use it more as a strength.
I love that. Yeah, I'll just say even from my own experience is
Yeah,
that like when something comes through, like when it's time, like it happens like that. Like it feels like this huge wave of energy comes through me. And like, it could almost be a little bit of a hyperfixation thing too. Like it just happens. Like when I felt the like time, the alignment, the portal to create my business, like I created my website, my mission statement, like all and like over the span of probably 48 hours. Like it was just done. And even with this newest program that I launched doing like coaching with people, like long-term healing and shadow work and manifestation work and spiritual gift development, like all that kind of stuff, like I channeled all of that through in a day. And then I got the guidance that that's one-on-one, and like that went out in a day. Like as soon as it happens and everything is online, it's done. you know and like
cool.
and like learning how to manage that from an energetic and physical perspective, like how to care for my body, because that is a lot of energy to move through your body. Like that can be difficult physically, but also just like to allow it and like to find ways to honor my creative flow, because sometimes it doesn't come through quite that fast and sometimes it just does. you know so like navigating all of that has just been like my personal experience with just like the sudden inspiration, the sudden change, just like yeah. So that's my 2 cents about it, because that really does resonate.
Absolutely. And it's honoring yourself in that and not making yourself wrong for it. That's
Hmm.
just how your energy flows. And that's it. Again, human design is such a tool to decondition from society.
Hmm.
And I imagine that a lot of other people did not build their business that way. And so
Hmm.
there could have been this comparison, this element of comparison, that it didn't happen the way that other people's did, but you trusted yourself enough to like listen to that urge, to listen to the channel that came through, and then built something in that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so we start with the energy type, we go to our human design chart, we see our energy type, we listen to what you just said, and we say, great, I love that. Like what more, like what's the next place that I should go to look? Like what in your perspective is one of the things that can be most impactful or helpful as like the next place to look in our chart?
Yeah, absolutely. And so with the third energy type with manifestors, I'll start there and then I'll share about the next part of the next piece that we go to. So
Yeah,
with manifestors, because I really want to share the difference between generator, manifesting generator, and manifestor.
I love
And
it.
the manifestor is you're following a creative urge that comes through you. And the biggest thing with manifestors is to pay attention to your relationship with anger. So this is for everyone that's ever listening that has never suppressed anger, but specifically for the manifestor type, because you may notice that this is a huge thing of what happens when you get angry. There's a couple experiences that manifestors specifically have. And again, all humans experience anger, but it's very potent in this type. Are you moving through the world in an angry way because you feel like you're being controlled? And so are you lashing out at people? It's a beautiful sign of knowing that you're out of alignment. Or has your anger been repressed? So much of society, specifically if you're moving through the world identifying as a woman, it's not okay to be angry. People, it's not okay. Like that isn't well received. And so anger can become very repressed in people, and you stop speaking, you stop using your voice, you stop saying out loud what it is that you want. And
Mm.
so for the manifester, it's so important to recognize and honor that anger in you so you can make space for what you actually want to be doing in the world.
That signal of something's not aligned. I love that.
Yeah.
And like you said, that has wisdom for everybody, but I love that if you know your manifesting energy type according to your human design, that's like especially important to pay
Yeah.
attention to.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
So okay, so you know your energy type and you've bought in and you want to learn more. Another really cool space to look at is your profile. And so when you're looking at your human design chart or on any website, your profile is the two numbers that are next to each other. So it looks like a fraction. It could be a 2-4 or a 1-3 or a 6-2 or a 3-2. And this one is most similar to Myers-Briggs. It's like the costume that you wear in the world. It's the character that you're here to play. It's how you see yourself and how other people see you.
Mhm.
And there's 12 different options that you can be. And I'll go through each line. There's 6 different lines. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
And then there's 12 combinations of those 6 numbers. So
Exactly.
this was a cool thing too, and I'm glad you're going to talk about this because when I first heard about this, like in terms of like the meanings of the different numbers, like even just that alone, and of course knowing my own numbers, I was like, oh, like that's so cool, like that I have the combination of these two different, I think you refer to them as lines, right, that are represented by the number. I have the combination of these two different lines in my experience, like that. That's really rad. So anyway, please go tell us,
Yeah.
please tell us about the numbers, the lines in the chart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And this is one of my favorite places to start. And when I'm leading a workshop for people, I often start with profile because it's quite relatable. And it's also fun to know the profile lines of the people around you because sometimes you can't see that gift in yourself, but you can see it with other people. Cool.
Love that.
So we'll start with line 1. So these folks are all about foundation. You may love the energy, you may love digging into like Reddit rabbit holes or reading comments, or when you have a new hobby, you're really digging into all of the material and you love all the fascinating details about things. You like to have a very solid foundation of information when you're sharing with the world. These people do not like it when you throw something on the fly and you're like, hey, can you do this? And if they don't feel like the expert in it, they may really struggle in presenting information. Another beautiful thing about the 1 is that they're the experts. They're the people, it's like the walking Wikipedia on certain topics. And so if you feel really lit up and passionate about things, my recommendation and what you may want to experiment with is giving yourself permission to go down the rabbit holes. Because again, you might beat yourself up for going down a rabbit hole, but ultimately, if you're meant to be an expert in something, giving yourself that space to do that and to explore with it.
I love that. We need people who are experts. So like if you feel that urge, if you're a 1,
Yeah.
please by all means fill that role for the sake of the rest of us. Like please
Yes.
be the expert.
Please.
We
That
need
is
you.
not my energy. That is not mine. I need people that know all the nitty-gritty details so I can ask them questions and
That's
get
exactly how
perspective.
I feel. I'm like,
Yeah.
I do like to go below the surface and I like collect all these random details and probably know more about most subjects than like the average person, but I don't need to be an expert in all of them. I want to talk to the expert, exactly like you said. I want to ask the questions. I want to listen to them, a podcast of them talking about it. I want to absorb that level. And then I want to move on to another topic and hear from another expert. So please, experts, indulge my curiosity. Please
Yeah.
let yourself be an expert and teach the rest of us.
Yeah, exactly. Do it. Even if you think you don't know enough information, I promise you do. I promise. You can share something at 80% and you're going to know so much more than I will ever accumulate in my lifetime.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah. So line 2, this is me. These people are very naturally creative. They have a flow about them. They may have an element of shyness. They may be not aware of their own gifts in the world, and they need other people to call them forward in it. People with a line 2 often pick things up very quickly if it's something that they're excited about and they're naturally good at. With line 2s, a fear or something that they really struggle with is thinking that things get to be easy. So I'll give an example. I was I was an improv teacher, and during the pandemic, I was doing improv for kids at schools, and I'd never done it before. I just like had this urge. I wanted to do it. I went out, and my first Zoom that I had with them, only one kid showed up. And it was through a nonprofit, so I was paid for the time, and it didn't matter how many kids showed up, but it was one little girl, right? She was so cute. And I was like, I've never taught an improv class for one kid. Like, what am I going to do? And we ended up pretending, this is so silly, but we ended up pretending to be fruits and vegetables the whole time. And I got paid $100 an hour to be a fruit and a vegetable.
Oh my God, how fun.
And I was like, this cannot be that easy. Are you joking? Like this, right? So it's like this, I cannot be paid for this. Like, this is like, and so, but that's the gift of the two, is like the things that come really, really easy and naturally to you are the things that you're meant to be paid for and well compensated for and share with the world.
I love it. I love it. Okay, tell us about the threes.
Yeah. So line threes are our experimenters of the group. So everyone experiments in the world again, and you're meant to, but the third line is really here to bump into life and try on different things and have many, many, many experiences. Sometimes line threes, again, like beat themselves up for not getting it right and having a lot of mistakes and failures under their belt. And so the gift of the third line is you're learning so much from every single time you fail. And you may, like, everybody has this energy in their chart to some degree, but specifically for third lines, you're really here to show that it is okay to fail and it's okay to make mistakes. And you're meant to talk about your experiences with other people and really show the lessons on the other side of it. Three lines, sometimes it's like the school of hard knocks with the third line of like, well, I messed this up, but I'm going to keep moving forward. And like, it's like playful energy in that too, of giving yourself that permission to experiment and look at life like a playground and try on many, many hats.
I remember when Erin talked about this one, she had said, these are the kind of people that just need to learn firsthand, you know? So like some people might get frustrated with three lines because they're like, I'm showing you the way. I'm like telling you how to do it to where you don't have to like have a mistake. And they're like, no, I just kind of want to try it the way I want to try it, you know? And like, they're just going to be that kind of person. Like give them the space to do that if they feel like they need to in that moment. And then the threes themselves, like let that be a place that you flourish. Like maybe you flourish through your quote unquote mistakes, you know? And I think there's just so much for all of us to learn from people who have, again, the bravery and the vulnerability to like go for it, even if they fall flat on their face, you know?
Yeah, totally. Exactly. Yeah. Learn by doing it, and opens the space for other people to be vulnerable. And again, with human design, you know, as you're listening to all of these, you may hear some of yourself in every single thing. You know, when we were talking about reflectors, you may notice, oh, I'm really empathetic and I take on the anxieties of others. Or when we're talking about the three, oh, I make a lot of mistakes and I do not like to be told what to do. And so it's knowing that it's not like segmented out and you're just one piece. You're an entire human design chart, and something else in your chart may reflect some of that too.
I love that. Okay, so for number 4, this is one of mine. I'm a 4/6. So tell us about number 4.
And I'd love to hear your experience with the 4. So the 4 is all about community and relationships. So the quality of your life is determined by your relationships with people. And so this can be really interesting because if you have a lot of really close friendships or a ton of really close friendships, or you're really close with your family, you may feel very, very easeful in those situations and like you're lit up and excited and the world is magical. But if shit's going wrong in your relationships and you don't have that closeness, or you don't have what you're looking for through relationships, it's like the world is exploding. And there's so much turmoil that can come from that. And so it's such a gift to be this community builder and to really be honest with yourself and check in with like, am I bullshitting here? Like, do I actually like the relationships that I'm in, or do I not like them? And is there something that can change? Because it's, I work with a 2/4, and she has built a community of people in a business based off of the people that she knows, and really has like brought people together.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember hearing that like a lot of times people with the 4 line, like they're pretty much always getting jobs through somebody they know. Like that's just like a thing that happens for them. I
Mhm.
heard that, I stopped and I said, "What?" And I thought about it and I was like, with the exception of one single job, of many, many jobs that I've had since I've been working since I was like 15, every single one of them was through somebody that I know. Like not even intentionally. It's not like I was going around asking like, "Hey, does somebody have a job I could do?" Like it just like happened to where like somebody talked about something and I was like, "Oh yeah, that, like whatever." Like every single one. And even me starting my business was from a community of women that's so near and dear to my heart that like said, like, do this. Like we would be the ones that would sign up for this. Like you like do it. And so I think that that's really cool. I'll just add too, I like wasn't sure about this line at first because like I don't feel necessarily that like relationships are super easy for me. But
Mm.
as I thought about it more, like I didn't feel like that's what this line is saying. Like this line isn't saying that like relationships are just so come so natural and you're always going to have great relationships. That's not necessarily what it's saying as much as like relationships play an important role in your life. And it's been able to help me look to the fact that the relationships and the quality of them is a very, very direct mirror for the relationship with myself. 100%. And I
Oh,
think that's true for everybody, but I wonder if that's especially true for 4s that like you're like if you want to see what's working and what's not working, where you're aligned and where you're not aligned, like where you have space to meet yourself more fully, see how people are meeting you around you. Like get really honest about how they're meeting you and how they're not, about what things feel good and what things don't, because that's going to be a direct thing
yes.
about you. And that I think that that's a really beautiful gift.
Yeah, that's incredible, Brie, because it's not saying it's easy. Relationships are hard. Oh my gosh, relationships can be so challenging. And it's giving yourself that permission to know that it's just going to be a big theme in your life. And with anything, there's two sides to the coin. And so you get to step into the relationships that you actually want to be having, rather than the relationships that somebody else told you you should have or you're meant to have.
100%.
And with 4s too, it's not, you're not meant to be friends with everybody it directly. Like you're just not, like sometimes the 4 can be described, you think, oh, like a social butterfly, and that can be true, but you're really not. You're meant to be, have the relationships with the people that you have relationships about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Okay, tell us about line 5 now.
So line 5s are the solution oriented fixers of the group. 5s are incredible. They know exactly what the problem is and they know how to fix it, and they can tell you how to do it, and they do it. They are often the people that are the mirrors for other people in society, where they come to you with a problem and sometimes they expect you to fix it for them. But the gift of the 5 is really drawing to light where problems are and recognizing that it's not your responsibility to solve every single problem that comes across your desk. 5s are really meant to figure out the problem, share the problem, and then take a step back and let the person that actually has the problem do their thing. And again, a lot of people may be listening to this and resonate with it. And everyone has this energy and has this human experience, because we are all humans experiencing this particular plane. But 5s feel this especially intensely. And they can also be examples to other people of how to really look at solutions and look at problems in their life.
Yeah, it's interesting because I very strongly relate to this. Like I actually feel like some of my gifts are being able to tap straight into where there is resistance or where there's distortion that's causing a lack of flow. Like intuitively, psychically, energetically, like that's like one of the things that I'm able to do with people is like you're saying one thing, but I can sense that there's another thing in there. Like what, like let's get to that. Um, but I like what you said again, and like we can be all of these things. And I wonder too, because I'm a 4-6 with like 5 being in the middle. I don't know if there's like a certain element of that too, but yeah, I think I love these kinds of people because I'm also like just a very solution oriented person. Like there's a way for things to not have to be hard. There's a way for there doesn't have to be a problem. So if like you open up the possibility that something can shift and like untie the knot, then like let's do that. So the fact that there's people who feel such like a focus on helping us do that, on bringing that up to the surface so that we can do that, I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you may find that you are attracted to a lot of people with 5 energy, and you're able to hang. You're able to have those conversations. And this is where, it's not just human design for me, but it's just looking at your life holistically. Because ultimately, even if you don't have a 5 in your chart, I want to hear about your personal experience with problem solving, with, untying the knot, with having all these experiences, so then you can clear out what's not working.
Mhm. Yeah.
Cool.
All
Yeah.
right. I know that we're starting to get close to our time, so I'll have you tell us about number 6, and then we'll share sort of our last thoughts with it all.
Awesome. Yeah. So the 6th line is all of there is an element of experimenting to the 6th line. People with a line 6 have 3 distinct phases of life, where the first area of life is you are more of that experimental living life as a line 3, like bumping into things and trying things on in your personal experience. So you went through this as you were turning 30. You may have noticed that you had a lot of experimenting in your relationships specifically. So the 6 lines learn a ton of lessons before they turn 30. And then the second phase of life is what's called going up on the roof. And so this is a time where you pull back from what you've done, you look at how life has been, and you start to take more of a bird's eye perspective. You may find that you're saying no to a lot more opportunities that come your way. You may find that you slow down in certain ways and just realize what happened the first 10 to 30 years. While it was beautiful in some ways, it's just not working anymore. So I'm a line 6 and I'm in my second phase, and this really happened to me. It was tough. When I turned 30, I looked around and I was like, I like corporate, but not that much. Like I loved building the improv theater and being in that community, but I did not like running it. I did not like it just wasn't what I was passionate about and excited about. I love performing and teaching and coaching, but I looked at what I had done and it wasn't for me. And so when I turned 30, in the span of like a year, I had quit my job. I had moved away from the theater. I left a relationship. And I took a sabbatical from work. So I had saved up money and I had income coming in, and I took a year to travel in a camper van by myself and really just decompress from everything that had happened in the world and had happened in my life. So now I'm 32 and I feel very solidly on the roof, where I have more of a bird's eye perspective of things, and I say no to so much. Like you say, line 6s say no to things that don't serve you anymore. Line 6s say no to things that they would have said yes to that they don't want to anymore. And so the 6th line energy is being the example for other people to do something similar in their own life.
Yeah, hearing about this one was really interesting. I'm a 4-6, so the line 6 is also my thing, and I turned 30 in a month. So
Yeah.
I've like gone through my Saturn return, which this absolutely aligns with, or at least I'm in the like the remnants. Technically, it's moved out of the sign. It's like a whole thing, but anyway, and I feel that. I feel like there was a lot of like, I know what doesn't work based on the first, 30 years, and I'm using that to shift into an opportunity to definitely create a lot more space to allow myself to decide what works before really going into it.
Beautiful. I love
And
that. Yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, and I love the sound of even the last third of the life, how like people talk about it, like that kind of middle third. It feels like it's like reflection and it's integration to a certain extent, and like letting things shift because there's a different perspective, and just like letting yourself meet things differently, in that kind of experimental way a little bit. too, just kind of in a different form. And then that last 30 years, like letting yourself really come off the roof as like the expert and just like shine yourself out, like just be it and like let that be what inspires people.
Yeah, these are not the people that peak in high school. Just you were meant to really be that light, in the last 30 years is really where you're seen as that expert. And you can always you can be very successful before that point, of course, but that last part of life is really where you may be seen as that sage, that wise woman.
Wow. Oh, that's freaking beautiful. I mean, is there any other elements of the chart that you would recommend people look into like after this or that tend to be favorite parts of the chart? Like, tell me what you think.
Yeah, so there's so much you can look at. Another part of my favorite chart is looking at each center.
Mhm.
So each center represents a different area of life, of emotions, willpower, inspiration, ideas, work, pressure, fears. And that can be a really beautiful place to start to look at what it is that you learned from society that you don't actually want anymore. So like a great example of this is like, what did you learn around work? And looking at areas of your life, like what did my mom do for work? What did she teach me about work? Was she always busy and running around and doing all these things and never took time for herself? Was she so focused on us as children that she like it felt like smothering? What did dad do? Was dad never around? Was he always working hard for his family? Was dad absent? Was he a very loving father? And again, it's you're not making these people wrong in your life. They are just doing the best that they can, like truly with the tools that they had. But it's more so feeling into each area of your life and unlearning what it is that you were taught that's not serving you anymore. And so
So looking at the centers on
yes,
your chart have correlations to those areas and can give us some stuff to start with to start to chew on as like we look into those different areas.
exactly. Totally. And so that's the work that I'm really passionate about doing, is helping people start to untangle what it is that they learned, so using human design so they can feel very spacious and like they're in flow.
I love that. And yeah, I think what you said too about, just kind of like getting over our own BS about things. It's just important too, because even how I feel that is like, can we be really honest with ourselves in a way that doesn't even need to be judging? It actually is quite compassionate to let ourselves be really honest
Yes.
and let that in comparison to what it is that we really want, like show us the path forward, because that's really when we start to see where we need to release things, where we need to shift things, where maybe we were projecting onto something else when really it was us. And I think tools like this, like human design, give so much depth to work with, to reflect back to us, and to give us tangible, um, like ways to phrase things because having like labels and having words is a great way for our mind to understand things, right? It's like to give us the language to be able to talk and deconstruct and reconstruct our experience with ourselves in the world 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that because it's another tool in the belt, and you get to start to be very compassionate with yourself about your actual experience and what it is that you're actually feeling, rather than pretending that everything's okay.
Mm, I love that. I did pull up my little like paragraph okay, so it's humandesignblueprint.com is the website, what Jamie was talking about before. So I feel like I'm going to read this paragraph that's for me so you guys can get a sense of like what it says. It has like on the side the type, strategy, like all of the different categories of what your chart shows you about yourself. That's all there for me to know about myself. I'm a manifesting generator. My strategy is to respond and inform. My inner authorities wait for clarity, like all these kinds of things. My profile is 4-6. But this is what the paragraph says, just as like an example for all of us. So it says, you are designed to be a multi-passionate doer and creative force. You're designed to be magnetic and let things come to you, to sleep on decisions, to wait for clarity, and to feel satisfied when you are aligned, to find wholeness through connection with others, and to be influential role model and a powerful relationship builder, to be talented and masterful at what you do, to be in a position of powerful influence, and to find a powerful flow and rhythm in your life, to bring heart and feeling to a community, and a feeling of community into all that you do, to feel inspiration from people and the world around you, to be open to different perspectives, to have a strong, powerful voice, to feel authentically expressed in your work and life, to be a natural achiever, tuned into your desires, to experience the full range of your emotions, to prioritize your excitement and joy, to have a strong, reliable intuition, and to slow down and not apply sense of urgency to everything that you do.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that like makes me a little bit emotional.
Thank you.
That's really beautiful. It feels like when we did our reading, there was like the different line or not lines, but the different like
Channels.
connections between the different centers. It feels like this is kind of like a summary of what those are kind of in one thing. Is that fair to say? Like this is kind
There's,
of like the short
yeah.
description of those different elements, all the different lines and numbers and centers and things. Like this is like the like quick like put together description of all of those things.
Yes, it's a short summary and it's in combining everything from your chart. So from your profile to your centers to your strengths, which are the channels,
The
and
channels, that's what it
yeah,
was.
your energy type. So
Really, our last thing here is like how people can find you, how they can connect with you. If we're like, we love this girl, we want to know more about our human design, like how can they work with you? Give us all of the details.
yeah, absolutely. So I would love for you to follow me on Instagram. My handle is Sunflower Vigilante. And I'm also on TikTok at Jamie Marie Clark, where I share videos not just about human design, but just the human experience in general. There's so many different elements to being a human in the world. And I love to look at people's charts through, the lens of human design, but there's so much there. And I do one-on-one sessions with people. And what I'm so excited about is this fall, I'm starting a case study for people that are really interested in moving through their own bullshit, like moving through their own fears and getting through what's actually in the way. And so through this case study, I want it to feel really intimate and looking at your charts and like what you're actually struggling with in terms of using your voice and speaking up on social media, in your real life, in your relationships, at work, and using my background in improv and the healing work and inner child healing and all of that as a way to get it is what you actually want.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so that starts in the fall. Is there like a hard start date or is that just like a month that it's going to start live or what are the details
Yeah.
for that?
Yeah, it'll start on September 15th.
Okay, cool. Well, go check out her Instagram page, her TikTok page. I'm sure. Do you just want people to DM you or there's a link in those bios to be able to find all the information for that?
Yeah, there's a link and you can DM whichever works better for you.
Okay, wonderful. You guys know to book with me, healingwithbre.net and Healing with Bre on Instagram. I have these one-on-one coaching programs where we're also going to go deep. We're using the Akashic Records, your guides, energy work to move through stuff. We're doing some deep shadow work and transformation work so you can get aligned to like your soul level self, like your soul path. Like if you're ready to shed the stuff and like be on your highest timeline doing the stuff that's going to create the most ease and abundance for you, and you want somebody that's going to like be able to like work deeply and like consistently with you over for 6 months, Healing with Bre is a place to go for that. Thank you everybody for joining this episode, and we'll see you next time on Breakthroughs with Bre.